With its keen vision, remarkable hearing, and legendary cunning, few outdoor challenges can compare to matching wits with the elusive wild turkey. When all the hours of scouting, calling, and patience finally bring a big tom to bag, the enthusiasm can be hard to contain, especially if it happens to be your first ever wild gobbler.
So I had my gun up there and started shaking and aimed for the head, and I pulled the trigger. I just started shaking like crazy, and I had goosebumps and my eyes started swelling with tears. It was an awesome, awesome experience.
Today, it is hard for younger hunters to imagine that wild turkeys didn't even exist for previous generations of Iowans. Equally amazing is the fact that there were also no flocks of giant Canada geese, no river otters, no nesting pairs of trumpeter swans on our Iowa marshes, no peregrine falcons rocketing across the sky. Even our premier big game species, the white-tailed deer, was virtually non-existent.
I can remember as a youngster hunting with my friends, and basically we had pheasant hunting and rabbit hunting and squirrel hunting was what we focused on, and that was primarily what we saw. We did have a few marshes still in existence around, and we did some waterfowl hunting, but we weren't very skilled at it. But today, when I think about the opportunities that people have to hunt with all the work that's been done in conservation in Iowa, we have some fabulous white-tailed deer hunting. We've got opportunities on waterfowl and the Canada goose, turkeys, and of course the squirrels and rabbits and pheasants are still around also, so you can go many directions.
The return of these magnificent species to Iowa's wild places is no accident. All are the result of aggressive recovery and wildlife management programs sponsored by something called the Fish and Wildlife Trust Fund. Iowans have long been aware of the need for sound conservation programs. Iowa produced many of our nation's early conservation leaders, including J.N. Ding Darling, John Lacey, and Aldo Leopold. In 1936, Iowa's growing conservation movement reached a new milestone with the creation of the Fish and Wildlife Trust Fund. With its aim of restoring and preserving Iowa's precious natural resources, the Fish and Wildlife Trust Fund is a special, dedicated fund which is used to acquire, establish, develop, and maintain Iowa's natural areas for fish and game. During the past half-century, the program has proven to be so valuable to our state's natural resources that Iowa passed a constitutional amendment to protect the funds from being used for any other purpose. Iowa's Fish and Wildlife Trust Fund is used to improve the quality of our lakes, rivers, and streams. Trust fund revenues are the literal lifeblood for Iowa's thriving fish hatchery programs. It supports walleye netting, egg collection, hatching, and stocking. Provides funds for statewide habitat improvements, urban and rural trout stockings, and enables biologists to annually produce millions of game fish fingerlings for stocking into Iowa waters. Other important programs supported by the Trust Fund include aerial and ground surveys that monitor fish and wildlife populations, educational activities that promote gun safety and instill ethical behavior among young hunters, and scientific research projects that help better manage our fish and wildlife resources. Trust fund projects also result in federal aid partnerships that allow the DNR to work with private sector conservation groups such as Pheasants Forever, Ducks Unlimited, the National Wild Turkey Federation, and others. These programs also aid grassroots hunting and fishing organizations in establishing and completing local conservation projects. In the end, each trust fund dollar actually becomes 4 as project funding is matched by cooperating conservation groups. Trust fund dollars also aid in the renovation of Iowa prairies, improve water quality by installing buffer strips and making in-lake habitat improvements. Trust fund dollars create wildlife habitat by building wetlands, establishing grassland nesting areas, and managing forests. The Trust Fund also supports law enforcement activities that protect fish and wildlife resources from overharvest and illegal poaching, and administers Iowa's hunter safety programs. Iowa contains more than 56,000 square miles within its borders. Sadly, less than 2% of those resources are in public ownership. Iowa currently ranks 49th in the nation for the percentage of land available for public recreational opportunities. Times are changing. As Iowa farms become larger and the numbers of farmers grow fewer, the pressure on our state's natural resources escalates. As the number of natural areas continues to decline, the need for soil conservation, stream protection, and other sound conservation practices becomes increasingly important. During the past decade, the Fish and Wildlife Trust Fund has been used to aid in the purchase of additional public lands, to acquire public access to our lakes and rivers, and has been used to make watershed improvements to Iowa trout streams. In each case, the DNR only buys land from willing sellers and always purchases land for its appraised value. Contrary to popular belief, the DNR does pay taxes on the land it purchases. During the 2009 fiscal year, the Iowa DNR paid $588,000 in property taxes, an increase of nearly $113,000 over 2003. Dickinson County Auditor Pat Dodd is well aware of the economic contributions Iowa's public lands provide.
People don't realize how much money that the state pays back to us in real estate taxes. They'll come in and ask sometimes. And so I ran a few reports. We found acre after acre that is still taxable. And just a brief summary, I found over $16,000 in taxes that the state does pay back to Dickinson County.
But the benefits Iowans derive from public lands go far beyond taxes. Public lands provide recreational opportunities for hikers, bikers, birders, and a host of other nature-related activities. In short, Iowa's public lands improve the quality of life for everyone.
The out-of-door experiences for all of my life have been very important to me and my family, and I at one time had an opportunity to work in other parts of even the state, in some places where there was not quite the quality of life that I enjoyed here. And so it's so important that I live in a certain place and I enjoy everything in the outdoors, whether I'm fishing or hunting, and I cannot imagine having very much quality of life without it. I would have to go someplace where it's at, and I found it here in Iowa, and I'm very comfortable with the things that we have.
People love to see wildlife. My grandchildren love to go look at leaves and bugs, and because I love the outdoors, I want my children and I want my grandchildren to enjoy it too.
Public lands provide rich and diverse fish and wildlife habitats, which in turn provide diverse recreational opportunities. Public forests, grasslands, and marshes are critically important to Iowa hunters. Iowa pheasant hunting ranks among the best to be found anywhere, and Iowa's monster whitetails are the envy of the nation. As a result, Iowa's public lands draw non-resident hunters from across the nation and around the world. And since most of these outdoor opportunities occur in less populated areas, the purchase of gas, meals, motel rooms, ammunition, and other supplies provide a much-needed boost to rural Main Street economies. When the statistics are examined, it's hard to overestimate the positive impact hunters and fishermen have on Iowa's economy. Best of all, sound conservation programs are conducted without the use of tax revenues.
That trust fund really is advantageous to the taxpayers of the state from the standpoint that it therefore precludes the state having to come up with general tax revenue when you buy your hunting, fishing, or trapping license or your stamps. It goes into a specific fund usable for very specific purposes by the Department of Natural Resources for their recreational endeavors.
Well, we're not committing any general fund money to protecting our resources here in the state in terms of the Fish and Wildlife Trust Fund. That's what makes the trust fund such an important part of our economy here in Iowa. What we're trying to promote, and this is very, very important with the Fish and Wildlife Trust Fund, is that Iowa is a place to live, to work, and to hunt and fish.
The money spent on hunting and fishing in Iowa each year is responsible for the creation of nearly 16,000 full-time jobs. With more than 30 years in the business, the retired owner of Tweeter's Restaurant in Arnold's Park is keenly aware of the impact hunting and fishing can have on local economies.
Well, I've seen pheasant hunters from Florida and Pennsylvania that used to come in, and the same thing. There's walleye fishermen and all kinds of fishermen come in from quite a ways away. In addition to that, of course, the snow activities, the snowmobilers and the trails people, and it just seemed to grow one on top of the other. At first, it was a summer season, and I suppose by the mid '80s and getting into the '90s and on, it seemed to get a lot better. At the same time, the public areas increased quite a bit around here.
Looking at how far we've come, it's easy to see why some Iowans think the good old days of Iowa hunting and fishing are occurring right now. And there is no denying things have improved. More wild turkeys, more Canada geese, more deer, swans, otters, falcons. The list could go on. Iowa's Fish and Wildlife Trust Fund has a rich and honorable history of natural resource achievements. Regardless of whether you happen to be a hunter, hiker, angler, birder, or just someone who is interested in cleaner water and an improved environment, one fact becomes crystal clear. Iowa's Fish and Wildlife Trust Fund benefits each and every Iowan.